Last election, it was all the gender stuff, the insistence that men can have babies and such. And now I fear that we like the terrorists is the new that. Liberals need to push back on the dumb ideas that come from their children. The Democrats' problem is the energy of the party's with the young and the young are with the terrorists. That's not good. So talk to your children and remind them you don't really want to live like your heroes in Hamas. All the shit you do all day, it was all made in America. Your smartphone, your Grubhub, your freedom to bitch about America, that's all American stuff. You tell your phone you want a milkshake and a guy brings it to your house. Please, you couldn't survive a week living in intifada.
Here's the deal. Bill Maher just went scorched earth on Bernie Sanders. During a blistering segment on HBO's Real-Time, and it wasn't subtle. In politics, hesitation reads like weakness, and Maher pounced. With the 2028 election looming, Sanders is back in the national spotlight. But this time, Maher didn't hold back. He tore into Bernie's stance on student loan forgiveness, calling out what he sees as glaring contradictions in the Democratic Messiah Party that talks progressive ideals while often dodging hard truths.
Week that the Supreme Court is looking at Biden's giveaway to people who own debt.
Giveaway is your term, not my term.
Well, they have college debt. Well, yeah. Okay, and we're going to give them money.
We're going to forgive debt.
Well, we're arguing about the same thing, but there's no argument. We're giving the money away. Okay, so I just want to read you this. Again, this is against why people sometimes, I think, question some.
Why should this matter to you? Because Maher just peeled back the layers of Bernie's rhetoric, exposing the cracks beneath the polished speeches. On the surface, student loan forgiveness sounds like a noble cause, but Maher argues it's more political theater than practical solution. Behind the slogans, he says, there's more spin than substance.
This is a survey student loan forgiveness recipients. 73% of applicants say they are likely to spend their extra money on non-essential, including vacations, smartphone, drugs, and alcohol. They admitted that to the pollster.
Who is this pollster?
NBC News. 52% they are very likely to buy new clothing. 46% they would use the money for vacation and eat out at restaurants. This is why people have a thing about, I would never call it free money, like I just did, but...
Well, I mean, let me respond to that in two ways, Bill. Talk about giveaways. Under Trump, the Congress voted for $1 trillion in tax breaks for the richest people in this country and the largest corporations. That's a giveaway. We just increased military spending with very little discussion, I don't know if you know this, by $80 billion. Military industrial complex.
Including the Democrats.
Pardon me?
The Democrats vote for it too?
Yes.
Maher says Sanders' pitch for student loan forgiveness is packed with slick language and vague intentions. Instead of tackling overspending or pushing for real structural reform, Bernie deflexive, pointing fingers anywhere but inward. With 2028 approaching fast, Maher warns, this kind of rhetorical gymnastics could sink the Democrats. They're walking a tightrope, trying to balance populist appeal with actual policy, and it's not working. This wasn't just made for TV. It's drama. It was raw, unfiltered political reality. If you care about where the country's heading, this conversation matters. And if you're looking for content that cuts through the noise, hit subscribe, you won't regret it. Now, let's dive into the heart of the takedown. The gloves came off the moment student debt hit the table. Maher had had enough of Sanders' dodges. Bernie tried his usual pivot, bringing it back to Trump, but this time, Maher wasn't letting him slip away.
What do you think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase. It's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get.
Maher called it out, plain and simple. Student debt forgiveness. In his view, is just a government-funded giveaway. Bernie tried to reframe it as a moral obligation, not a handout, but Maher wasn't buying the rebrand. And this wasn't just a debate over wording. The real issue, Maher argued, is what people are actually doing with the money they're saving. When taxpayer dollars are on the line, how that money gets used matters. Maher pointed to what he sees as a troubling trend: recipients spending the windfall on indulgences rather than responsibilities. That's where his frustration boiled over. To him, it's not just about forgiving loans, it's about accountability, and whether the policy lives up to its promises or simply feeds.
If the thought leaders in the Democratic Party keep encouraging and not rebuking the idea that America is cringe and the people who run Gaza are great, the Democrats are doomed. Alyssa Slotkin's right. Liberals are weak and woke, especially the white ones, and they indulge all sorts of nonsense from their kids, a pattern that then continues on in the Democratic.
The cycle. You could feel the tension crackle when Maher pulled out the poll. A significant number of student loan forgiveness recipients admitted they'd spend the extra cash on vacations, booze, and luxury splurges. Not skills training, not savings, just indulgence. Maher didn't have to spell it out. This is what happens when public money collides with private impulses. And Sanders, he didn't touch it. Instead, he defaulted to a familiar refrain: billionaires, tax breaks, corporate greed. But Maher wasn't having it. He's heard the 1% routine too many times. This time, he pushed back. If Bernie's so outraged by cronyism, why not clean up the mess within his own movement? That's when Maher zoomed out to 2028. Sanders may be eyeing another run, but Maher questioned whether this flavor of progressivism is a genuine path forward or just political smoke and mirrors. Lean too far into activist echo chambers, he warned, and you lose the swing voters who actually decide elections. Then came the gut punch. Maher brought up a recent rally where the Palestinian flag outshined the American one and Bernie said nothing. To Maher, that silence spoke volumes. Appealing to the activist base is one thing. Ignoring the rest of the country, that's not just bad optics, it's a crisis of identity. He didn't stop there. Maher called out what he sees as a dangerous drift among young Democrats. Confusing rebellion with leadership, an aesthetic flash with actual strategy. Big cheers at rallies don't translate to ballots in boxes. If the left keeps chasing style over substance, he said, they're setting themselves up for another political faceplant.
Was the poll incorrect?
Yeah, the poll was wrong. So what?
What about the conversation that they had with Kamala Harris, where they edited the answers that she had?
60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism.
That's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense and you edit that out.
Suing media has the impact of intimidating media.
No, but it's not that. It's deceptive editing.
I don't know.
You give people a different perception of who this candidate is than reality. But that's not objective journalism. Would you agree with that?
I don't know that I agree with your analysis of it.
I think that's universally accepted that that's what they did.
Then the impact is clearly intimidation. He wants to defund public broadcasting. Why is that? Because they also would run critical stories of them.
They say things that are defamatory and factually incorrect. What other course does a person have other than a lawsuit?
I don't think that it is appropriate to be intimidating.
Sanders brushed it off, but let's be real, if the roles were reversed, he'd be outraged. What really landed in Maher's critique was the warning shot. Democrats and Bernie, in particular, are veering dangerously out of step with the broader country. Applause on Twitter isn't the same as winning elections. Maher wasn't just offering commentary, he was sounding the alarm. It's time to break out of the ideological bubble and get back to pragmatic politics.